You could never tell it from the photos until you go sit on that rock, lean your head over and go, holy smokes, I better be careful here. That was like terrifying.
Oh, David, not that way. Don't go.
I'm just going to get closer to the...
No, I don't need you to get closer to the edge. Welcome to In the Parks, part of the Get Indiana podcast network, and what is usually an Indiana State Parks podcast. I'm Allison Martin, and I'm excited to take you on a family trip to learn about some amazing places outside the Hoosier State. Think of this as a little field trip or a brief side quest. I think our parks, state and national, show off the best of America, but there's more to them than you might expect. So it's time to go in depth to really know the stories and discover what makes each destination unique and valuable as part of the U.S. On a short season 2 of In the Parks, you'll learn about the people, legends, and places that formed Utah's mighty 5 national parks. Today, we're going to Canyonlands National Park. Why is an Indiana State Parks podcast talking about a national park? Well, my family, all originally Hoosiers, and half of us still Indiana residents, we took a big trip out west for my dad's 70th birthday. He wanted to visit Utah's mighty 5, the 5 national parks spread across the southwest corner of the state. We did a lot of research to make it happen, and I wanted to share our tips, mistakes, regrets, and memories so other people can have an amazing trip to the mighty 5 too. And selfishly, I wanted to remember this time and record the voices of the people I love the most. Canyonlands is another park where we barely scratched the surface. You could do it in a day like we did, or you could spend a week getting out in Utah's backcountry. The park has 4 districts that aren't connected to each other. The rivers, where you can spend time on the Green or Colorado rivers and even go whitewater rafting. There's the maze, which even the National Park Service website calls remote. You can visit the Needles, which is where my brother Andy really wanted to go, so he could see the Cedar Mesa sandstone formations, but we didn't have time. Instead, we went to the most popular district, Island in the Sky, named because of the high mesa it rests on. But don't let the phrase popular make you worry about the crowd. This park took the vastness of Capitol Reef and leveled it up. It was the first park where I truly started to be concerned about keeping kids away from the edges in many places. Here's my brother Andy.
We were out there. You felt so remote. Some of the places you don't feel nearly as remote. To me, that felt like we were really out in the wilderness, there was nothing around. That was cool.
At this point in our trip, we were staying at an Airbnb in Moab. We drove about 45 minutes to Canyonlands, going right past the entrance to Arches. We started with our go-to hiking style. Drive to the farthest point and work your way back to the entrance. That meant our day began at Grand Viewpoint Overlook. The drive to the southern end was fairly flat on top of the mesa, but the drops straight down to the canyon floor are what make this hike exciting. Grand Viewpoint Overlook sits at 6,000 feet elevation. It's a 1.8-mile round-trip hike, and from the top you can see mountain ranges and rivers across the canyon. And while you might assume every canyon looks the same, this area felt very different from the Grand Canyon, which we visited later on.
Island in the Sky, like going out there and seeing stuff, was very different than Grand Canyon, because Grand Canyon, your views are like across the canyon to the other wall, basically, and down in there. It's a little different. Whereas at Canyonlands, it was just, you almost just felt like you're like, where does this end? Like you're just looking out into like, oh my, it just goes. Like, and it's still, I think Grand Canyon, they said the deepest parts from top to the very bottom is something like 5,000 feet. So it's a lot, it is deeper. But even Canyonlands, they said the highest points down to the bottom of the canyon is like 2,500 feet. So it's still like, it's deep down there. Like you could look, we couldn't even see where the bottoms, where the rivers were. Like I thought we'd be able to see it. You could just barely even see down to the river in a few spots.
Yeah, the Grand Point Overlook or Grand Viewpoint Overlook, that one felt like a lot deeper than Shafer Trail. Because Shafer Trail was about 1,500 feet. I mean, that really just felt like, I don't know where the bottom of this is. That felt, and you're right, you couldn't see the other side of the canyon. So it just felt like it just dropped away into like this vast nothingness that you're like, what is over? Like, where's there another side? Like, did it just collapse? What happened here?
It also felt a little bit, especially as you got more out to the tip of that point, like just like wilderness playground. Like there wasn't like, you better stay on this little niche spot. I don't think there was any of like the crust stuff to worry about breaking or stepping on. It was just rock. And so you could kind of, to some degree, like kind of like walk around, like go where you wanted to, just be careful at the cliff edges. But like otherwise, like you could just explore, look around, climb up on things, check out different viewpoints. And it just felt like free. Like you could just kind of get out there and be a part of it and see stuff. And that was really cool too.
Canyonlands is definitely a wilderness playground. Aside from keeping kids away from the edge of the canyon, the rest of the time they were able to follow the trail, which was marked by rock cairns, and they could climb up all sorts of rock formations. They explored, played, and adventured, following my brother David's advice. Learn to do dangerous things safely. You're climbing a rock? Make sure it's the right size for you. Have a spotter and keep 3 points of contact. There's a dangerous edge, we stay away from it, and if we get close, we hold a hand and remember not to mess around. Good lessons for adults, too. As we finished the Grand Viewpoint Overlook hike, a park ranger was finishing her program on the geology of the area. I wish I could have heard that one. Next, we headed to Mesa Arch. There's a trail that's about a kilometer loop with Mesa Arch in the middle. It's a ridge that looks amazing and safe and a perfect photo spot until you get up to the arch and realize it's right on the cliff edge.
I had heard at Mesa Arch that there was a drop off right past the arch, because I had heard people saying, like, if you have kids, like, just like keep them back or warn them, like tell them just be careful, keep an eye on them. But that was a lot bigger than I thought it would be from what those people said. I remember I was like, oh, is there a drop off over there? And somebody, it was dad or somebody, was like, oh yeah. But then I like looked over, I was like, holy cow. I was like, oh my word, that goes like, I mean, what was that, like 1,500 plus
Easily.
feet at least? Like just
straight down.
I mean, you don't, like, you can't do it justice till you go, because like the people sit there on that little, like on that rock and get their picture taken under the arch. Right behind them, like 3 feet behind them, it drops 1,500 feet. I mean, you could never tell it from the photos until you go sit on that rock, lean your head over and go, holy smokes, I better be careful here. That was like terrifying.
The rest of the area around the arch, there are a few other large boulders to climb and plenty of safe spaces for kids. But there are a few other high rocks where you'll want to watch your footing and keep a close eye on any little ones with you. The scenic views of the canyon were once again incredible, and I'm glad we added this short hike to our day. From a couple overlooks, we saw off-roading trails way down below on the bottom of the canyon. As we drove toward the visitor center, we stopped at the Shafer Trail Overlook. We watched jeeps the size of toys slowly pass each other before snaking through the switchbacks. It felt like watching a movie. They were so small and distant. But I didn't think much of it. I wanted to hike to Upheaval Dome after we ate lunch and went to the visitor center, but I wasn't sure I'd talk anyone into joining me. At the visitor center, we plotted out our next moves. My sister, her husband, and 2 kids had just joined us, and the kids were very busy filling out their Junior Ranger guidebook so they could take their pledge and get a badge. We're going to hear all about that in the next episode. They still hadn't adjusted to the time change and were getting worn out. Andy and his kids needed an afternoon out of the sun and were headed back to Moab. But my brother David hadn't rented a Jeep Wrangler for nothing. Shafer Trail was calling his name, and I wasn't going to let him have this adventure on his own. That is so far down there.
That is so far down there.
I don't understand how we're getting down to that. That is nuts. This is going to be crazy. David recapped the day later with our dad, demonstrating why Canyonlands is the perfect wilderness playground for adults.
So either way, I was excited to try any kind of an off-road trail just because of like the circumstances of it. Wasn't expecting it to be this one specifically. Like I didn't have one in mind. I was just like, you know what? I got this Jeep. I want to do something. And we saw that was right there and was, you didn't have to have a permit or anything, and it was pretty cool looking. I was like, we got to try this. This is like one of those when are you ever going to do this again kind of moments.
He was ready for the 1,500 feet of descent with me in the passenger seat and his 3-year-old asleep in the back. She somehow slept in her car seat through the entire bumpy ride down. So what is Shafer Trail? It's the off-roading path of your dreams. It was originally a Native American trail to access resources. Then it morphed into a trail for sheep herders. It was named for John Shafer, a Mormon settler, who used the route to move his cattle, and did a lot to make it safe and passable. Later, it became a way for trucks to access uranium. Once the land entered federal hands, the trail became used for fun. There's a picture on the park website of a Volkswagen Beetle on the trail back in 1965, but I'd recommend a car with 4-wheel drive. The trail starts fairly flat, though bumpy, and is an ordinary packed gravel, but it soon changes.
It was a little nerve-wracking. I was just a little nervous because partly I think excited, and partly because I saw what it looks like and what we were doing, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into. But it was definitely cool. So we first go in, you don't see the switchbacks at all. right? You have to like work your way across the mountain before you kind of flip around one of the edges of the mountain. It was casual at first, like I said, the first like turn, a couple turns, and then you start really seeing into the actual like canyon, I guess, if you will. And that was pretty cool. And then when you really got into it, you realized how close to the edge you really were. And that was, especially me, because we're coming around and the canyon's now on our left side. And of course I'm on the driver's side, which is the left side of the vehicle. So it's like right there on the edge. And I look over and I'm like, oh boy. And that's when you see how far down it goes, because you're at the top. Well, you're not even, yeah, you're at the top.
You're still at the top.
You're not on the top ridge. At
You're
that
real
point, you
high.
dropped it. But it was 1,500 feet down.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I mean, you were still probably 1,400 feet up
Yeah.
from it at that point.
So you get that little, butterflies in your stomach of like, oh boy, this is so scary. I definitely felt that at first, but you're going slow, and the road was plenty wide.
We weren't going fast, and the road may have been wide enough, but we still hoped we didn't have to pass anyone and could adjust to the driving and still enjoy our surroundings. Let's get back to the live audio from that day. No need to look down.
If you're just looking straight ahead,
Yeah,
no
it's
big
nothing.
deal.
Oh my gosh, you really can't. Well, and it's like a straight rock wall, like 20 stories up to our right.
Yeah.
When we did look down, we could see a large truck working its way up towards us, and we were afraid of what was coming. It's just cool to just look straight across and see like kind of the cliff faces.
Yeah.
We are so
very
far up right now.
close to the edge.
I'm like,
We're not even that close to the edge, but
No.
we're very close to the edge.
Like an entire car could still fit between us and the edge.
Yes.
But I still feel like I'm in like a roller coaster. Like I need my lap belt tightened a little bit more.
Dreaded the first time we have to pass with somebody.
I know, I'm like praying, like, God, please let there not be anybody that we have to pass. At least not when we have to go to the edge. If we have to pass somebody, let it be when we're on like the inside wall.
Or let it be at like a kind of a unusually wide spot.
Where the ground is totally level.
That's where like the Jeeps are nice because you can like look out and see your wheels very easily to see where you're at, and that's helpful to really understand. Okay, I got this much space until I hit the wall. Okay,
Right.
This much space until I'm uncomfortably.
And I can literally just put my hand out and see. And like we're still pretty far from some of the shrubbery.
Yeah.
Our first few times passing someone were in wide areas, so it wasn't too scary. Having seen the trail from above was also helpful.
It didn't look very scary from up above.
You know what? Seeing it from above, though, was helpful because it did give you a better perspective. Seeing the car, too, it gave you a better perspective of how wide the road was. Because it looked kind of narrow, but you can't really tell. But once you saw a car go on it, it was like, okay, I can see how you could fit two cars by there, and it would be okay. So that was fine. Kind of up towards the side, if you're kind of facing towards the back wall of the canyon where all the switchbacks are, so you can see what's coming, which is helpful because all right, I can see somebody's way down that way. Maybe by the time I get around to this spot here, that's when we're going to cross paths. Let's try to time that appropriately. So we had good success there because we did come across a couple other people. Someone come from behind us, and then a couple people came in front of us that we had to work around.
And I think the
But
first
go
few
in.
times we passed somebody, we were on the wall side.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, we kind of got used to the protocol and let the people who presumably were more experienced come by on the edge, and
Yeah.
that felt a little safer too.
Presumably, yeah.
There are quite a few areas with built-in berms and pullouts to provide space. We also learned that uphill traffic has the right of way, which makes sense because their visibility isn't as clear as drivers going down. Visibility is really limited when you're going uphill and taking on a switchback. And some of those switchbacks really got your heart racing.
So the first couple turns, you kind of are like just following along the cliff edge. You don't see the switchbacks yet. And then finally you're like, all right, I think it's going to be around this next corner. And sure enough, that's where it was. You kind of make your way around the bend, and then you get to see those.
Good?
These are like the real switchbacks. These are so cool.
Oh my gosh. This is kind of nuts. You got plenty of room on the right.
Yeah. Just staying nice and
Yep, nice and tight, nice and slow.
nice and tight, nice and slow.
And then suddenly, we were at the bottom. The trail's about 5 miles and continues on to the White Rim Trail. That's where you'll need a permit. We got out on the canyon floor, which was much warmer. Took a few pictures, and it was at this point where my niece woke up. And she had a lot to talk about. She gave us a recap of what she did at Mesa Arch.
We went up the rocks. I went some with Daddy. There's dirt and sand.
Did you have to walk on some steps?
Yeah, but I needed Daddy's help.
And she had a few opinions about her dad's driving style.
It is bumpy. Whoa.
Scary.
That was scary. Daddy, slow down. Daddy, slow down.
Talk about a backseat driver. As David reflected on the adventure, my dad asked which way felt harder, uphill or down?
I think going down was more nerve-wracking because you can see what's down, right? Going up, you can't really...
And you're hoping the brakes hold.
You don't see the depth and how deep it is and how far you could potentially fall.
But I would say that the difference, like you're going down, you're really thinking about riding the brakes, but when you're going back up, you're really making sure you keep consistent gas so that you don't like spin out. Because there was one time when I was like, oh man, somebody could spin out here and that'd be really bad.
Yeah. I think it was a pretty good job of keeping my pacing with it because you want to keep that for multiple reasons, but the biggest one being you don't want to damage the trail because you start throwing rocks around and everything. That's how you get these gigantic holes that everybody then has to deal with. So I didn't want to be the person that messes it up for everybody else either.
Turns out driving in the snow in Indiana was helpful. If you can make it up a hill covered in snow that's turning into ice, you can handle driving on a gravel road. And speaking of Indiana, have you looked at the new In the Parks hats yet? They're the best way to rep your home state's natural beauty. I'm selling hats that show love to our state parks. They're fitted, lightweight, vented, and breathable. The hats are covered with images that represent the parks, like the iconic Brown County Lookout Tower, arches from Rose Island at Charlestown, a firefly for Harmony, a bison for Obachi, and the Red Barn from Prophetstown. Plus, you'll find things like a fire tower, red-covered bridge, ranger hat, bald eagle, and more. I designed the images and pattern, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. Check out the show notes for a link to buy your hat today. Now let's get back to Canyonlands and Shafer Trail. Andy said it best. Canyonlands is a wilderness playground. As a kid, the playground was a place to test your limits in controlled environments. You played, explored, and ran around. You got excited to get outside and see where the day took you. And it's just as important for adults to play as it is for kids, which is why David knew driving Shafer Trail was a must.
As you get older, there's fewer and fewer new experiences because obviously you've lived life and you don't get to do new things as much. And you really don't do things that make you, or at least often anyways, make you nervous or make you scared. And I think I like the idea of doing something like that every once in a while so that, life stays a little exciting at times.
I'm mostly a risk-averse person, and so are my parents and siblings, except David. He really has gone skydiving and is the most likely to do something spontaneous of the four of us. And that's still not saying much because now that he has 2 kids, his opinion of risk versus reward has certainly changed. But I think he's onto something. As adults, we should still do new things. Still stretch ourselves to take on something uncomfortable that we aren't sure we can do. Because in the process, we usually discover something about who we are we didn't even know was there. We realize we're stronger and more resilient, and that life is full of beauty and fun. You may even find yourself saying, like my niece,
Yes, that was cool.
yes, that was cool. And I can think of no better place to take a risk and try something new than in the parks. Next week, we're headed to Arches National Park, where...
We got to see Delicate Arch.
What'd you think about it?
It was really big and it gave me the EPGPs a lot.
Why did it do that?
Because there was a really far drop and it was so scary if I could fall.
In the Parks is part of the Get Indiana podcast network. If you love discovering what makes Indiana a great place, join thousands of Hoosiers, keeping up with the latest and greatest happenings at getindiana.com. You can check out other podcasts, read blogs, and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. A big thanks to my brothers Andy and David for letting me interview you for this episode. In the Parks is not associated with the National Park Service, but I'm so grateful for the work they do for our parks. Be sure to visit In the Parks online to purchase your State Parks hat, follow along on social media to see the beauty of our parks, and I greatly appreciate your comments and reviews. It helps more people find the show. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the parks.